Alright, alright. How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? Hey, Yatsuki Stones. What's up? What's up? What's up? So today, why is the timer going? Calm down, timer. Hold your horses. Hey, Zelin. How are you? Eternal Lady, how's it going? Right, so today we will do Feedback Friday. While I'll paint on top of this. Yesterday's what is it called? Sculpt. You seem really sleepy. Well, thank you. You look so fantastic today. I'm really you look there's always like a little bit of a minefield, don't you? Isn't it? Like, oh, you don't look that good today. Excuse me? What? No, I am a little bit tired. Honey, hey, listen. Calm down. I'm not your honey. I am a bit sleepy. I'm just, one of those mornings. Just so freelance. I don't look good today. Yeah. Those are always a bit dangerous. But everything is fine. I'm just tired. Have a cup of coffee. Yeah. That will do wonders for my looks, right? Hey, Gria, how's it going? All right. Business meeting set. It's a platonic honey. I'm not worried. Don't you worry. All right. Let's jump on the feedback wagon while I do this. Okay. We got only two things to give feedback on today. You guys, you're not grinding hard enough. So this is, who was this? Tamas Daku. Sharsta, how's it going? So this is Tamas. I think overall, they're really cool. There's a lot of character there. There's also a good range of outfit and kind of color. There are certain things here and there though that makes it less. Hey, Captain Boss. And Amir, what up? Right. So, um, first of all, there's a lot of detail, costume details on this character that is incorrect. Um, and there's a lot of things that doesn't make sense. You got to be a little bit careful with your costuming, especially if you're making up things, but um, especially when you're in the category of realism. You can't have that much leeway in how you draw certain things. Let's take this pocket. The pocket is extremely incorrect. Placement and size. Placement not only vertically, but horizontally placed incorrect on the jacket. Frogs. Cheers. Yeah, so you gotta pay attention to all these little things. And on his jacket, for example, you have these wobbly lines going down the seam of the jacket. One thing you should consider, if it's denim and with that seam, the seam is folded, which means it's extra stiff. So it's gonna be really, really hard for a jeans jacket seam to look that way. Very wobbly. And yeah, there is tailoring. I guess you have to phrase it as tailoring. There's tailoring issues with the costume on that guy. A lot of weird lines, like that line. And this is the wobbly line I talk about. And also anatomically, if his knee is here, his arm is baby arm. The anatomy is wrong there. Usually a good measurement, an average measurement that you should consider, if the arm is straight down, the elbow touches the top of the hip bone on average. So you've indicated that his elbow is there and his hip bone is there and his rib cage is there. So, or actually like there. So the tip of his elbow should be there approximately, and then his arm there. Well, maybe not that far down, but something like that. So his arm is off. But if the arm is going towards us in perspective, yes, you can't have those measurements because the arm is going towards us, which is foreshortening. 1 second. Add it to Discord. I'll be right back. There's a delivery. All right. Ooh, up and down the stairs. Hey, Cosmoverse. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about the panting. All right. Yeah. So, like the gun is, it's in an angle. It should poke the pants, or be angled differently, or moved in. Whew. There's some issues with the modeling of the legs, the pants. Whew. Okay. Catch your breath. So there's issues there, and there's a lot of wobbliness with the costuming on all characters, and a lot of strange shapes, which are incorrect. And if you look, for example, his belt, the belt is changing size more than perspective allows it. So what that does when you do that is that it looks wobbly and inconsistent and unnatural. And even though we can see that there is a belt there, we don't believe it, because the fact that it's there as a symbol rather than realistically. Miguel, breathe. What panting? I mean, now I was running, I think it's 3 flights of stairs with 2 15-kilo boxes 2 times within this time, so I'm a bit, panting, but that's okay. That's okay. Zealin, oh no. All right. So on another feedback is materials and cloth. You rendered cloth and materials very similarly, and the metal and cloth all have the same intensity. You have to vary the gradients in the materials, especially on metal. I've talked about this on other warm-ups, but let's say cotton and metal have different behavior in their value range. Like metal, usually when it's very shiny, it's clamped. It groups, it simplifies the value range into lesser chunks, and they are harder transitions. Zealin, like I'll paint you another picture. I live in a over 100-year-old unique building. With special blue stones. All wooden floors. Original. 6 rooms. With open fireplaces in every room. Yeah, exactly. From the north. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Alright, so there's a lot of anatomy issues, small little tweaks like this duck foot. There's a lot of that going on. Duck feet. That cast shadow isn't correct. It isn't a cast shadow. It looks like a cast shadow. That's good stuff. And lastly, you got to be careful with how you render like brown skin. There's a lot of different, you have to use different tones because of the way the skin acts when it's darker. It reflects different hues, it has different hues, or it turns differently because the skin itself is darker, but we all have the same color of blood. So it does certain things with certain hues. Like people like me have greens and blues a lot, and pinks and yellows, where brown people with brown skin, different shades of it, they have more purples and dark brown and orange, like in the way the skin turns, and a lot of like blues in cyan, like sky reflections, because they have a darker tone, it shows more obvious. The feeder of the war correspondent. I think she has a bikini on. But yeah, that part there, the anatomy is off. Okay. Moving on to Zealing. I think this is really cool. I think in terms of presentation, Tomas, it's okay not to have them as a main focus, but it has to read. So you have to model the torso differently. You have to make correct volumes on the torso. Gria, yeah, that's an interesting observation. These models tend to lend themselves to a lot of things, but I think it's a matter of taste as well. I do like to go down into the shadows rather than up into the lights. Usually when I paint, that's something I've noticed from before, that I like to go. You know, certain painters go light, right? I definitely go dark. Way more often than not. So it's an interesting observation. I could easily spend my time, I think, giving attention to the lit side and not just have it sit as it is. Hey, Super Groovy, welcome back. What up? All right, back to Zealing. You know, I think in terms of presentation, it's fantastic. It's really good, really moody, and it definitely sucks you in on the initial read. Like, we are definitely presented with the claw hand, and then we travel up into the character. One thing you gotta be careful of is values. Even though you want them to be subtle, you really need to have them read, the shapes read stronger. Navigator. If we look at the navigator, we don't really see anything except the arm and the eyes. And I know you want us to see more. So as an example, if you would separate it a little bit, you can look down at the navigator, we can already see the shape better. or if we switch it off, it all gets lost. Even though we haven't drastically changed the values, we have still grouped the values differently so that we can read them more coherently. And we haven't really compromised the overall initial read. It's still low contrast at the character in the background, but we still get a sense of what is what, you know. So I think that's really cool. Something I mentioned to you on Discord was that you're repeating the shapes a little bit too much. The size of them. I think the changes you've done is definitely for the better, but I still think you're doing the same mistake. If you look, for example, on my character, and you look at the cavities that I'm painting on now, for example, a lot of them, they repeat, but they're not the same size, and the negative spaces between them, I mean, obviously this is a screenshot, it will look different if we rotate the camera a bit, but nevertheless, the cavities, they are placed, sized, and shaped placed, shaped, and designed with spacing in between them in mind, and how they interact, so that the holes and the shapes, they don't feel the same size, because in nature it doesn't really, everything isn't really evenly divided, because it's not, nature doesn't exist like that, and it's also aesthetically not pleasing when everything is even. So by that, on yours, what I'm talking about is, for example, the size of that. This is a feedback I've given to you guys a lot of times. Same size there, 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 same size there. You're starting to see the pattern, right? And when you do that, what always happens is that we stop looking at the intricate details, and we're only looking at the rhythm of them, and the kind of the tension that they create when you have different sizes gets absolutely lost, and all we can do is just looking at the same mush, if that makes sense. So when you're designing something, and just looking, let's Google something real quick. Okay. Oh, come on. That guy. Right, there isn't a lot of even-sized things, even though they are interlaced with naturally there are different sizes of muscles, different intersections of muscles, major muscle groups and minor muscle groups, because if everything is equally strong, you can't have function in it. It's impossible. So you got to be careful when you do things like this. I mean, it's not bad, but you need to be aware of it, and you need to adjust it a little bit so that it doesn't repeat that evenly and clearly. Right? You need to go in and subtly change it up a little bit. It doesn't take a lot to fix, but you have to be aware of that in order to be able to fix it. So hopefully now that I mentioned it, you can just go in and add, you know, it's okay that they are the same size, but you just got to make sure that you break the surface up a little bit so that there is a little bit of variation. There's a little bit of different kind of shape hierarchy, so that when we look at it, we don't go plop, 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 plop. That there's a nice mixture of it. I think material-wise, it's all a little bit the same. I would like to see a little bit difference. I think I started seeing you added some kind of juicy meat shine on some of them. I think that's great. I think just a little bit more definition, separation, so it's not all samey. You can do that with subsurface scattering, or the intensity of the highlights, or dull certain areas down. You know, add a little bit of scruffy texture to some, you know, just to help guide the eye towards understanding what it's looking at, right? Also, one thing you have to pay attention to is on the legs. One thing you have to start learning, which a lot of other artists are doing the same mistakes, is that joints are generally blocky. They're quite box-like, versus the parts in between the joints are a lot softer. And that's why, for example, if you simplify the shape, the knee should be more of a wedge, versus the thigh itself can be softer. But you can't have a soft knee, or you can't have a soft elbow, because the whole elbow system is like a block. It's very crude and it's very simple, made to take impacts, versus this is like the meat on the joint, right? And then the joint itself is very, very blocky. So you got to make sure that these things are communicated correctly. And if this is his arm, we can't see it. Miguel, oh yeah, your ripped torso, your Spanish landscape of male wonder. Toning, yeah, it's easy mistake. That's what I'm saying. You have to just be aware of it and work harder at it. I think those are the biggest issues that really stand out. I think, Zielin, you've added some really beautiful subtleties and variations in the lower part of the image and the arm. It's really cool. You just need to push the presentation a bit. The arm is completely lost, as in terms of us understanding it's a part of the monster, because of this reason. And Sharthas, I think it's nice. I think overall it's a good attempt at an environment. One thing that struck me, though, it's very noodled to death, in terms that it's there's a lot of same sized lines across the whole image, and with that it usually ends up being very busy and very noisy, without points of relaxation. What I mean about that is, how to explain it? Hey, Sharsa. Okay, so I'll do a quick demo um, of hair, right? There are two different ways, or two major different ways of making hair. You lump the hair together, like the major shapes. You 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 start defining the mid shapes, right? And then you go in with the finer brush. Um, and what's with the pressure sensitivity? And then you start like defining the strands, but you don't go strand by strand, right? And you try to emulate like the highlight of the hair, the strands of hair, um, to showcase, you know, the shininess of it, or you know, however you want to, whatever the goal of the hair is, right? And there's another way of doing it is when you go hair by hair. And the hair by hair one, um, and the hair by hair one will always result in too noisy, too unrealistic, and the eye won't know where to go. So what you've done is similar to that, but in terms of detail. You see all the waves, the ripples, the information on the tree trunks. It's all where you go strand by strand rather than major shapes, medium shapes. And in that way, when you do it that way, you can, when you're doing it the more controlled way, in terms of big, medium, and small, you can help the eye be guided. You can help the eye absorb the information. Because what you're doing now is that you're fighting with the observer where they should look. And then in return, in the only way you have left to guide the eye is with contrast. So you're upping the contrast everywhere in order to try to make intriguing image. But what you're actually doing is you're spreading high contrast areas across the whole image, which is making the whole situation worse, because not only do we have a lot of small shapes, but we also have a lot of high contrast small shapes. So what's happening is that we're just looking at, you know, lack of kinder word, spaghetti. Sounds harsh, but hopefully you'll get the point, you know, that there has to be a hierarchy of information. You can simplify, for example, a lot of the water, and it will instantly read better. And also, there's a lot of straight gradients, and with that I mean gradients going from color A to color B without any sort of consideration to what's in the, for example, what's in the water. What it, you know, is it translucent? You know, is it lit? Is it in shadow? Is it brown, murky pond water? Is it algae water? Where's the thinner part of the water on the wave? Where's the deeper pocket of water in the sea? You know, all these things actually affect color as we see it because of things that the material itself does, right? How it refracts light, how it behaves, how thick is it, how opaque is it, all these things. So all these like subtle things do a lot to a painting. And what you got to do when you're doing paintings like this is first consider the materials you're going to use, understand how they look. You don't need to understand it like professor understands chemistry, you know, but at least have a vague understanding what water does when a crescent, is that what it's called, of a wave, the peak of a wave, the translucency, the colors. You haven't worked on the colors yet, but there are colors there. But also, it's the same issue, even if it's only grayscale. It's the same issue with over detailing and straight gradients without color changes. But like I said, it's a good start. It's a nice image. These little things about high fidelity details and high contrast, it's easily fixed. You can just go in and soften areas and balance the volumes and so on. But overall, there's a lot of high contrast shapes together. Like, there's no understanding the depth between this whole left area. It all feels in one layer. Same over here, really. But it's a matter of helping adjust the values, adjust the colors, and hue shifts from the back to the front because of atmospheric differences. And also, you might want to have ambient light in the trees and in the shadow. You know, it doesn't need to go to black just because it's in shadow, especially in daytime. There are really no black shadows in daytime. Vanity Fair, yeah, absolutely. I mean, as Sharsta said, it hasn't really touched colors yet. I think there can be a lot of improvements with colors. So, but at least you are a little bit more aware of the mistakes you've done, and hopefully you can start pushing it a little bit further. Right, time's up. I colored a little bit on this guy, but wasn't really successful. Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming. We will raid someone. I will just do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Some presentation. Let's find someone to pass the love on to. Let's raid Chloe. Nice and relaxed. Hey, Ice Die. Goodbye, Ice Die. But yeah, good stuff. Discord people. Lovely work. Thanks for sharing. I think it's all of the things that we discussed have a lot of promise. It's just those little tweaks, those obvious mistakes. Adjust them, and then there will be new mistakes and new things you can push. But you know. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a great day, everyone. See you on Monday for Study Monday. I will maybe stream on the weekend. I don't know, depending on how tired I am. Bye.